So tonight we have a candidate forum for a few different offices. First, we have a candidate forum for governor. It is unlikely that Kathy Hochul is going to show up, and as you all know, Delgado dropped out. Your choices on the ballot are going to be between Kathy Hochul and no endorsement. Then we are going to hear from some actual live human beings in the race for the New York State Assembly seat AD 69. That's Michael Asher's seat, but as you all know, he is going to be leaving for Congress. Then we will be hearing from all the judicial delegates that got appointed at the last meeting. Then we're going to have endorsement votes, and the endorsement votes are going to be for various congressional candidates, the controller, and 2 Senate seats. And we're also going to be voting on the judicial delegates from whom you will hear tonight. Now, one of the things that Three Parks does as a tradition is we have club members speak on behalf of candidates. So we're going to go through the program that we have with the live human beings. Then we are going to have club members speak on behalf of the candidates for whom we are voting tonight, and only them. And if there's a break in the proceedings, we're going to play a song from the No Kings March. But we're going to move right along here. Judicial delegates are going to be speaking for themselves. They are not going to be spoken on behalf of by club members. In any event, we're going to get started. We are not going to have anybody speak for Kathy Hochul because she's unopposed. All of the judicial delegates come right now to the front of the room. Sue is the first judicial delegate to speak, to introduce herself to the rest.
Hi, I'm Sue Maderer. I've been a member of the Upper West Side for over 45 years. I was in the garment industry and started my own business in as a financial organizer. I have been a member of Three Parks for a number of years, working on campaigns, petitioning, postcard writing, etc., working at the storefront, attending rallies and marches, currently on the county committee, and have been a judicial alternate. I've been an active volunteer and co-treasurer of the 102nd, 103rd Street Block Association, and I lead twice weekly walking groups for BAIP, and one of my walkers is here. And I'm a building rep for BAIP, and I'm a volunteer with the New York City Ballet. And I'm starting a new beginning Marjan group, so for BAIP. So that's who I am. And I ask for your support to be a judicial delegate. Thank you.
Okay, Elaine, you're up. Elaine, you're up. Could all the judicial delegates please come to the front of the room so that we can have everybody meet you one by one.
Hi, I'm Elaine Hazard. I am a New York licensed attorney. I have been a member of this club for a little over 10 years. I've been a judicial delegate or judicial alternate since 2019. And I'm not going to take a long time because there's a ton of people to speak tonight. Most of you know me. Okay. Thank you. I hope for your vote, your support.
Okay, next up we're going to hear from Al Caceres. For people who have clothing on the chairs next to you, please pick it up so everyone can sit down.
Good evening. My name is Alfred Placeres. I've been a member of Three Parks since the 1980s. Had a law office here on 104th and Broadway for about 40 years. It's now right above City MD, so you might have seen that. When we went back then, it was a supermarket. And I've been living in the neighborhood since 1953 when my family immigrated from Cuba. So I grew up in the neighborhood. My sister and I, we went to Holy Name, which used to be on 97th Street in Amsterdam, but the school's not there anymore. I prepared this so I don't have to give you too much detail on what I've done. I just want to mention that my grandchildren also now live in the neighborhood, so that's 4th generation. So We have a rent-stabilized apartment, so we're not going anywhere. And I'm seeking your support for a judicial delegate. I've served as a judicial delegate in the past. Thank you.
Josh Pepper.
Hi, my name is Josh Pepper. I have been a member of this club for about 25 years. I was president of the club in 2007, and I've been a judicial delegate many times before. In my private life, I'm a lawyer in private practice, plaintiff's side, mostly civil rights work. Thank you so much.
Okay, Michael Stern.
Good evening, fellow Democrats. I'm Michael Stearns. I've been a member of the club since around 1960. Since around 1990. I'm a retired journalist. I was a reporter, editor, publisher for newspapers and magazines for 55 years. I was a judicial delegate last year. I've been a board member of the club for 2 or 3 years. I'm the recording secretary, and I've worked on the last 2 presidential campaigns with tabling and all the other activities that we've had with the storefront, etc. So I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Alan Flax.
It reverberates. Alan Flax. 3 important things I'd like to leave you with. A judicial convention delegate is an unpaid party position with somewhat of a fruit-fry life of going to a convention. But it's very important. I've been a delegate many times. Term limits are not an issue. The more you've been, the more you know, and I'm fully familiar with the court system. We pick lawyers who want to be state trial judges, state Supreme Court justices. And it's very important to pick good lawyers because they are elected for a 14-year term, often re-elected unopposed, and they make rulings that affect individuals as well as statewide, and their decisions are often followed by other judges. Finally, I believe that the election of a state Supreme Court justice with his or her wide powers of adjudication is more important than the election of a governor. Thank you.
Okay, now we're gonna hear from Aaron Mendelson, another candidate for judicial delegate.
Hi, sorry I was late. I was putting my kids to bed. I wrote a little brief something, maybe a minute and 20 seconds. Okay, where are we? My apologies. Don't count that towards my time. My name is Aaron Mendelson. I'm honored to be nominated alongside my Three Parks friends and fellow candidates to serve again on your behalf as a judicial delegate. I've been a Three Parks member for almost 10 years, and I've served as a judicial delegate for the past 5 years. Simply put, I love playing a small part in the selection of our Supreme Court justices and would be honored to do so again this year. A little about me. I live in Manhattan Valley with my wife and 3 kids. I'm a lawyer, lifelong public servant, and have served in New York City government since 2022, first as director of the City Council's Oversight and Investigations Division, and now as Deputy General Counsel at DCAS, New York City's Department of Citywide Administrative Services. My government service and community organizing goes back, though, more than 30 years, to when I served on the Clinton-Gore presidential campaign. Some say I look too young for that, but God bless. I've worked on Capitol Hill and in the White House, and most relevant here, I've served as a law clerk to a federal judge and at the U.S. Department of Justice for more than a decade as a federal prosecutor. In these roles and throughout my almost 30-year-long legal career, I've appeared before hundreds of federal, state, and local judges. I say all this because I believe I'm uniquely qualified to work closely with my fellow judicial delegates to assess our Supreme Court nominees' qualifications and temperament, and to nominate those whom we decide together are best to lead our judicial system and to serve our city. So thank you very much for your vote. Again, Aaron Mendelson, and for trusting me to represent Three Parks with integrity, mutual respect, and empathy during this year's judicial selection process. Thanks.
Okay, so now you've heard from all the judicial delegates who are here tonight. I haven't finished yet. You've heard from all of the judicial delegates who want your support to go to the convention tonight, except for 3. Barbara Footer, who has a substitute speaker, Stephanie Tegnasian, and Anthony Zach. If they come later, we'll try to put them on, but in the meantime, we're going to call up Chuck to speak for Barbara.
Okay, hi. I'm speaking for Barbara Futter. She's a relatively new member of the club, and she's extremely enthusiastic, takes part in all of our activities. She's been great. I've been extremely impressed. She's really been terrific. She says Barbara Futter has served on the board of the club for 1 year and loves being part of this educated, active group. She's been an attorney for 35 years. Now semi-retired, she moved to Nashville in 1990 for a 3-year attorney job as an assistant public defender. Later, she was a legal aid lawyer in a rural area for 11 years, and then worked as a progressive lobbyist. She knows the importance of judges and how they can affect people's lives. She's honored to be considered as a judicial delegate, and if chosen, she will work hard to serve in that role. She's asking for your vote. Barbara Futter.
Thank you, Chuck. So Stephanie Tegnasian. Stephanie Tegnasian is going to speak to be supported as a judicial delegate.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm glad I made it. Some days are like that. I'm sure we've all had them. Anyway, I've been a member of the club for more than 30 years, and I've been doing alternate delegate for 10 or 15, maybe more. I've actually sat in courtrooms. I've actually talked to dozens of judges. I'm doing it so long, I've seen them retire already. It's amazing. And of course, be elevated up to appellate. So I hope you vote for me. My name is Stephanie. You want to know anything else about me? Come talk to me. I'll be happy to tell you what my career has been like. It's been long, and there have been 3 of them. Thank you, everyone. Hope you vote for Stephanie. Bye.
Okay, that's Stephanie Tegnasian. Now we're going to hear from Tony Zach. Tony.
I apologize for being late. I apologize for being late. I had grandfather duty, and it kept me. That's one of the. Okay. I've lived on the Upper West Side in the same zip code since 1953. I've been at the same street since we got married in 1973. We raised our 3 children here. Although I'm not an attorney, I'm sometimes mistaken for one, which I consider flattering. It's a function, I think, of spending half a century in IT. And IT people and lawyers have the same kind of linear thinking. I do, however, have a lot of experience with the judicial system in terms of jury duty. I've been on state juries, federal juries, grand juries twice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that qualifies me to have some perspective on judicial delegates. I certainly appreciate a candidate who is intellectually honest, analytical, and follows the U.S. and New York State constitutions, which is not always true of some judges. Are there any questions?
We're not taking questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
All right, so let's give it up for all the judicial delegates who are up here. Please give everybody a nice round of applause. It's not easy if you don't often do public speaking to get up and do public speaking. There are chairs everywhere. Some of them have other people's items on them. Please make the chairs. Who has a chair next to him or her? Raise your hand. Anybody wants to sit next to any one of these lovely Three Parks members or friends, please come do it now. Okay, so we are not going to hear from the real live human beings right now who are running for office. We are going to hear from club members on behalf of people for whom we are voting tonight. The ballot box is going to open as soon as we have a club member or not speak on behalf of all the candidates, but we do want to make sure that everybody has the maximum amount of information about the people who are running tonight, whose names are going to be on the ballot tonight. So first, and I'm just going in alphabetical order for each office, would anybody like to speak on behalf of Assemblymember Alex Borres for congressional seat New York 12, which is Jerry Nadler's seat? He's retiring. We heard from almost all the candidates last week. Would someone like to speak on behalf of Alex Borres? Going once. Going twice. Yes, Arlene, would you like to speak on behalf of Alex Borres? Can Arlene please have a microphone?
I wasn't really prepared to, but since no one else has raised their hand.
You have 1 minute, so.
Okay, basically what convinced me for Borres as opposed to Lasher is because the tech bros had huge amount of money spreading lies about him. And to me, that means that they're scared of AI regulation that he would be able to enact. So if the tech bros are scared of him, to me, that's a good recommendation.
Thank you, Arlene. All right, next candidate, if anybody wants to speak on behalf of George Conway. George Conway. Going once. Going twice. Gone. Would anybody like to speak on behalf of Laura Dunn? Would someone like to speak on behalf of Laura Dunn? Going once. Going twice. Gone. Would someone like to speak on behalf of Jamie Floyd? Jamie Floyd, another candidate for the seat from which Jerry Nadler is retiring. Going once. Going twice. I actually volunteered to speak on behalf of Michael Lasher, so I'm going to speak on behalf of Michael Lasher. So Micah has had a lot of experience in government. He has worked in Albany. He's been a state assembly member. He's worked for the governor. He's worked for the attorney general. He's worked for a mayor. He has sometimes taken positions that Three Parks didn't agree with. He has moved on from those positions. He understands when he might have made a misstep. He comes to our meetings. He comes to our tables. He has tremendous amounts of legislation that have really made a difference in our lives. He has more that he wished had been passed. And I think that as far as experience goes and smarts, and the thing that I really want to focus on now, and those of you who have seen him speak at our meetings, he is so passionate about fighting back against this federal government. We could not hope for a better member of Congress to to get the Democrats to get a huge spine, and he's just been devoted. So that's my speech for Michael Lasher. It looks like Lynn Max wants to speak on behalf of Michael Lasher.
I'll be very quick, okay? I think Micah is the most incredible person. He got to Albany, introduced a gazillion wonderful pieces of legislation, got them passed, stands up to Trump at every second. He's the congressperson, okay, that we wanted after Jerry, okay? And I hope you'll support him.
Next up is Alan Pardee. Anybody here wants to speak on behalf of Alan Pardee? Alan Pardee, going once, going twice, gone. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Jack Schlossberg? Anybody want to speak on behalf of Jack Schlossberg? Going once, going twice, gone. It's my understanding there's somebody here who wants to speak on behalf of Nina Schwalbe. Can someone give, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Renee, give Renee a microphone. Thank you.
So I'm Renee Green-Levitt. I live on 97th and West End, and I'm supporting Nina Schwalbe, and I'm asking you to vote for Three Parks to endorse her. The reason I'm supporting her is because she is the candidate closest to my values. I am a democratic socialist. I think she distinguishes herself in an area for which congressional representatives have authority and not local or state representatives, and that would be foreign policy. She is the only candidate who has come out forthrightly in support of the Block the Bomb legislation, and the way she presents it as not just against Israel, but against not giving military aid for offensive military weapons to any country that bombs, that uses the weapons against civilian populations. And I think that is a framing that can resonate in this district. She's led foreign aid programs for the Biden administration. She worked with UN officials, with diplomats, to get into countries in the global south to distribute vaccines, to distribute medical supplies. And so, of course, she was fired by the Trump administration. And if anyone has fire in their belly to rebel against Trump, it is Nina. She is a public health professional. She's for Medicare for all and for housing as a public right. Jack Schlossberg stood here and was the only candidate 2 weeks ago to say anything about public housing, but he didn't go far enough. He wanted aid for repairs to NYCHA, which is important in our city. But Nina would repeal the Faircloth law and the amendment. And if any of you know what that is, it means that the number of public housing units that we can build is limited to what we had in 1999. We need that repealed, and Nina is committed to doing it. Science underlines her policy decisions in every area. She does have roots in this. She has roots in this district in Chelsea, not in this neighborhood, so she's unknown to us.
Okay, next up, do we have a club member who wants to speak on behalf of Matthew Shurka? Matthew Shurka. Anybody want to speak on behalf of Matthew Shurka? Okay, going once, going twice, gone. Moving on to New York State Controller. Would somebody like to speak on behalf of the current controller, Thomas DiNapoli? Would anybody like to speak on behalf of Controller Tom DiNapoli? Judy. It has to be on. It has to be on. Hold on a second.
Thank you. Tom DiNapoli has been one of the most honest elected officials in the state of New York. He's been great. He's smart. We trust him. He's taking care of my pension, so I really trust him. And I think I speak for a number of people in this room as well. So I would seriously urge you to vote for him. Thank you.
Is Adam Bunkadeko. Would anybody like to speak on behalf of Adam Bunkadeko? Going once. Going twice. Gone. Moving right along. Would somebody like to speak on behalf of Raj Goyal? Going once, Raj Goyal. Going twice, Raj Goyal. Gone. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of Drew Warshaw? Drew Warshaw. Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, so now we're moving on to the last elected official office that we're voting on tonight. The New York State Senate for the 30th District and the 47th. Would someone like to speak on behalf of Eric Botcher? Well, come on up, Dan.
Hello, okay, yes, we are. We are? Okay. Hi, I'm Dan Cohen. I'm a district leader. I've known Eric Botcher. I have the pleasure of knowing Eric Botcher for 15 years. He started working doing community outreach work at the state level, and then was a staffer locally, and then was elected to the city council, and is now advanced to the state senate. I don't believe he has an opponent. He just won the special election primary. He's the Democratic nominee. He's now actually running in the official primary in June. We would be well served. He would be taking over for Brad Holman-Siegel, who has been elevated to the borough presidency. Eric Botcher is a good man and will work very hard in the same way that Brad Holman-Siegel did, and I look forward to supporting him and him serving in the state senate. I'm happy to answer any questions, although I'm ill-prepared to do so.
No questions.
Thank you very much.
No questions. Okay, for the last elected official for whom we are voting tonight, who would like to speak on behalf of Senator Cordell Clear? Would you like to speak on behalf of her?
Hello.
Don't get too close to the speaker.
I think maybe not. Yeah. Hi again. I'm still Dan Cohen. I haven't changed. State Senator Cordell Clear represents this district. She's been a little shy, Miriam, and I feel like we would love to see her a little bit more. But she serves us well in the state senate. She serves the district well in the state senate. She was a staffer for Bill Perkins, who was the state senator, amongst other jobs, for a number of years, and then ran to succeed him. This club actually supported one of her opponents initially in a special election when Senator Perkins stepped aside, and there was a special to fill his seat. But she then emerged to be a champion for the district. She is a fierce defender of the interests of Central Harlem and the West Side, and she speaks for people who have no voice. This community, this particular community, is well represented by many people who have lots of voices, who speak out on lots of issues. She represents a community which doesn't have the pleasure of having as many good voices, and it's really great that she's there and speaks on the community's behalf. I'll stop there. Again, I'm happy to answer questions that I'm ill-prepared to answer.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
All right. So let's see a show of hands to see who's a voting member of Three Parks. Show of hands, everybody who can vote. All right, you should have gotten a ballot. The ballot box is hereby open. I think Roger is guarding it with his life, so you can all start voting. Try to do it quietly and respectfully, because we are going to move on with the meeting. The instructions are on the ballot itself. You know what? Let's take a pause. Place that music you were going to play, please. We're just going to, everybody's rushing the ballot box, and I really would like us to be able to listen to Eli and Stephanie as they ask for your support to succeed Micah Lasher in the Assembly. So we're just going to take a minute. Please vote quickly and efficiently.
They call it hate, 'cause they're afraid of the people they betrayed. We march with hearts that still believe in the promises they now unweave. They wave the flag and twist the truth, sell our future, steal our youth. But the streets now hum with liberty's song, for we've been quiet way too long. We dissent for the dream they sold and broke, for every word the liars spoke. We dissent for the truth they twist and bend. We won't let the story end. We dissent for the love of this land, not their greed, not their command. We dissent 'cause freedom's not their toy, and we won't let them destroy. Turn justice into puppet strings. They say be silent, stay in line, while they rob the public blind. But courage don't come from a throne. It lives in voices not their own. The power's ours, it always was, and we'll rise again because we dissent for the flag they claim to own, for the truth that we've outgrown. We dissent for the rights they try to kill, for the fire that burns still. We dissent for the soldiers, teachers, kin, for the fight we're still within. We dissent not out of hate but care, for the soul that's still out there. They can sneer, but the people persevere. Every chant, every sign is America in its prime. From Selma to Stonewall to today, our dissent is the American way. We dissent for the light they dim with lies, for the hope they demonize. We dissent for the heart of the free, for what it means to we the people, not me. We stand, we shout, we pray, till justice has its day. We dissent, and we will not relent, 'cause loving freedom means we dissent. 'Cause loving freedom means we dissent. 'Cause loving America means we dissent.
So we have two candidates to succeed Micah in the Assembly. We have Eli Northrup, who's going to be speaking first because his last name begins with an N. And then we have Stephanie Ruske, who's speaking second because her last name begins with an R. All right, Eli, come on up.
All right. Wow. What a turnout at a local political club. The first time, I was just speaking with somebody as I went to cast my ballot. The first time I ever spoke as a public figure was in this club, like 2 years ago today. And it's so amazing. This neighborhood has the highest amount of Democratic involvement of almost anywhere in the entire country. And so that's really meaningful because this neighborhood is going to be the place where Democratic resistance comes from. I'm Eli Northrup. I'm running for state assembly here in the 69th district. One of the things I learned when I ran 2 years ago, and one of the things I really value, was that I got a chance to go to all these different political clubs and to meet the different people and to see how they operated. And I chose to join Three Parks after I lost that race because I felt like this club had the spirit that I most empathized with. The brave stands that we've taken, whether it's pushing back on charter schools, whether it's pushing for a ban on fracking, protecting our immigrant neighbors, these stands are ones that I have fought for and that I believe in. And I feel very grateful to be a member of this club. So thank you for having me here and for listening. Yeah, I did run 2 years ago in a spirited race. There was actually 5 of us that ran in that race. I finished second place to our now assembly member and potentially next Congressman, Micah Lasher. And you know, I think we have been very lucky to have Micah up in the assembly over this last year and a half. The work that he's done to lead the way to push back against the federal government overreach, the creative policy solutions he's come up with to target ICE, he's leading in the assembly on those issues. And him and I have developed a strong and trusted relationship since that time. We speak frequently, and I look forward to working with him going forward. For those of you who don't know me or don't remember me from 2 years ago, I think it's important to know where I came from. My background, my family had a huge impact on me. My father, Brad, was really my role model in life. He was a conservationist. He worked for the Nature Conservancy for almost 40 years and instilled in me a deep appreciation for the natural world. My mom, Jody, is a poet and a teacher. She really motivated my love for the arts. She's currently the poetry editor at Moment Magazine. And her father, my paternal grandfather, Sanford Bowles, was a civil rights attorney. He worked for a number of years as counsel to the American Jewish Congress. His work was about combating anti-Semitism and pushing back against segregation. And so his example really motivated me to go to law school. I went to Cornell University. I studied psychology. I spent some time living in the Dominican Republic. And then I went to NYU for law school. And after I graduated from law school, I clerked for federal judges on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals and in the Southern District of New York. That's where I got to know Alvin Bragg during that time, because Alvin and I clerked for the same judge. So I've known him for many years. And then I chose to be a public defender. And that is what I've done with my career. For the last decade plus, I have stood next to people charged with crimes who can't afford to pay an attorney. I noticed an inequity in our legal system, and I do not feel like the amount of money you have should dictate how you are treated by our systems. I've represented people facing foreclosure, people facing eviction. I've represented people in immigration court facing deportation. I've represented people in family court. I've represented people who have lost their jobs because of a simple conviction. I've seen holistically how our government systems impact people, and I picked up the phone and stood next to them. I have spent my career pushing back against people's constitutional rights being violated. I am prepared for that. The moment that we are seeing right now, it's what I've spent my whole career doing and pushing back on. About 7 years ago, I started doing policy work. I wanted to, you can represent everybody in every case and do well, but you can also go up to Albany and try to push for more systemic change. And I felt like that was an important thing to do as well. So I started going up to Albany, and I've led a team of people for the last 7 years to go fight for changes in our justice system, changes to make sure that criminal records don't hold people back. I have organized. I have written legislation. I have worked to get it passed, and I have worked to see it implemented. I know how Albany works, and I will be ready to go as your assembly member on day one. It's why I have over 20 elected officials, progressive groups, community leaders that have endorsed me already. The New York Working Families Party made me the first endorsement of their entire assembly races this cycle. Zephyr Teachout has endorsed me, City Council member Helen Rosenthal, former chair of the DNC, Howard Dean, and a number of other local officials, because they've seen me fight. They know what I'm about, and I've lived my values consistently. if I gain your support, if I go up to Albany, I will be a fighter for this neighborhood. And whether that means investing in the parks that we all value so much, tearing down the scaffolding that litters West End Avenue, whether it means making efforts to fill the empty storefronts that go up and down Broadway. We've got 58 empty storefronts between 80th and 125th on Broadway. We need policy solutions to this. We also need to be able to live here. People like me, people like public defenders, social workers, nurses, who make a salary paid for by the government, it's almost untenable to raise a family in this neighborhood. We need universal child care. We need universal health care. I will fight for those things because I feel them. We need to build more affordable housing, and we need to protect tenants. And then finally, I will continue Micah's legacy of pushing back against the Trump administration and the overreach by ICE. He's proposed some really good bills to do that. I will continue that. That is really where I think the rubber meets the road right now. We need to protect our neighbors. We must, because what do we have if we don't come together and do that? So I am humbly asking for this club's support. Three Parks hasn't had a club member be an elected official in a little bit, and I think we deserve it. So I hope to be that person for you. Thank you very much for your time.
For a few questions for Eli. I made a big boo-boo the last time, so let me just do this correctly. Yes, sir, in the front row. No, you hold it.
You got it? Okay. I just wanted to ask you whether you have any ideas, plans, strategies, thoughts on how to safeguard retirees from the blandishments of so-called Medicare Advantage.
Yes, I'm very aware of this issue. And I was a fighter for the retirees the first time around. I know that the rug has essentially been pulled out from under you all. They're trying to take away a health care plan that you were promised, that you worked and you dedicated your career and your life to serving this city. And I will stand up for you. I will say, if we're not taking care of our city workers, if we are not allowing our city workers, the people that actually make this city run, to retire in peace and to support them, I don't know what we're doing. So I know Marianne and all of you are a very strong bloc, and I met the first time around. I'm aware of the issue, and I would be a fighter for you.
And that gentleman gave the perfect example of asking a question. I urge you to follow along. The woman in the middle row there, and then we'll go to the gentleman in the back.
Hi, there has been a lot of hate and intimidation outside of houses of worship, and we all want to feel safe in those places. There's a buffer zone proposed by Hochul and Menon, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's actually two different bills that have been proposed. One is a 25-foot buffer zone. One is a 100-foot buffer zone. For people that don't know, essentially what the proposals are, it creates a crime. It creates a felony if people are protesting and intimidating people within those buffer zones. Listen, I've spent 10 years defending people in court. Every time a new criminal action is created, I don't see it actually addressing the issue that it is meant to. It does more to penalize people that don't have the means to fight back, and really mentally ill people. I am very aware of the hate and the intimidation. I don't think anybody should feel like they can't go into their house of worship and feel peace. And I've consulted with the ACLU about this specific issue. They are against both of these buffer zones. They say that it will harm speech, it will infringe on free speech, and I trust the ACLU in many ways. That doesn't mean that I don't think that this is an issue that's really important to address, but I can't be behind something that I don't think will actually address the issue while infringing on general speech rights. So, but thank you for your question.
Paul, okay, so one more on this side, then we'll go to that side. Trying to be fair.
Can you hear me? Oh, there. You said something about the empty storefronts.
Yes.
I don't think it's the most important issue in the world, but it does plague us. And I've often wondered why there isn't rent control for stores, but that's just my idea. But what is your idea? That's my question.
It's not just your idea, actually. Assemblymember Emily Gallagher just introduced a bill that would create a form of commercial rent control. You say it may not be the most important issue. I have a community survey. I urge you all to fill it out. I've been collecting responses from people across the neighborhood on what they want to see changed, what they want to see emphasized. The empty storefronts is one of the most popular responses that I've gotten. So many people feel this way, and I personally feel this way. These landlords, there's a couple things going on, and there's bills to address all these things that haven't moved. I think, first of all, many of them are waiting for these big chains to move in. If you look at Morningside Heights above 110th Street, it's almost all now these big chain stores, and our local, they pushed out our local, independent stores. And there is no commercial rent control. So I think that's one measure. You could create a vacancy tax so that after a certain period of time, landlords start feeling it. There are some tax loopholes that actually allow them that make it more profitable for the stores to be empty than they are to be rented out. So these are all things, Brad Hoylman-Siegel has a bill, Micah has a bill. These are all bills that have not passed yet, but I would certainly support, and I would look for other creative ways. I think you want to have a stick, right? And you want to have a carrot. You want to invite these landlords in these buildings to rent these storefronts out, because it's not just their bottom line. This is a thoroughfare. And when you have a bunch of empty storefronts, it affects how we all experience the neighborhood.
Okay, so we're gonna do 3 people on this side. I was gonna pick the woman in the blue sweater first, but whatever.
Oh, sorry. Hi, sorry. Many of us in the neighborhood were very concerned about the homelessness around during the cold weather recently and the new policy under the mayor to leave people in place. And I'm wondering if you can comment on where you would distinguish yourself from leaving homeless people on the street to suffer in the way that they did, because it was really very upsetting.
Yeah, really tragic. And the mayor's policy was not to remove encampments. So there isn't a change in policy with respect to individuals, but clearly there wasn't enough done to let people know about the warming stations that existed. And I think we need to be, nobody wants to be out in the street in the cold like that. The outreach needs to be ensuring that individuals, that if they can't make the decision for themselves, they should be, prompted to be in these warming shelters that exist. But the real truth of the matter is the homelessness problem is bigger than even just the cold. We don't have a shelter system that exists that really protects people and that lifts them up into stable housing. We need to invest so much more in supportive housing. I've represented many people who experience street homelessness, and I've seen their lives change in 2 circumstances: when they get a stable job and when they have actual access to supportive housing. It has changed people's lives. I am a huge proponent of it, a housing first model, and I think we need to be doing everything we can to make sure that we're not leaving our neighbors in the cold as well.
Hi. So I was wondering, can you clarify your relationship with the DSA? Are you a member of the DSA, and are you aligned with all their platforms?
Yeah, sure. I'm not a member of the DSA. My political identity, I've lived it through my work as a public defender. And so I've always felt that that was my political home in criminal justice reform work. I was endorsed by the Working Families Party last time. I'm endorsed again. There's a number of electeds who are DSA members who have supported me. And in many of the policies I do support. I think most of them I support. I am myself. I'm running as Eli. I'm not running in some sort of slate. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm not a member.
There was a woman in the back, I think, and then we'll move toward the front. How much more time do we have?
Hi.
I'm out of time. Excuse me, I'm out of time. You're the last question.
Okay, thank you. Just to following up on the buffer zone, if that's not the policy that you support, what would you do to make people in houses of worship feel safe?
Well, I think there's a lot more. Even in the instance that kind of led to this happening, there's a lot more that law enforcement could have done. in that position. They even admitted that they let it get way too far. You can have protections. You can have people there on the scene at the time to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand, that people aren't being threatened, and law enforcement can step in. You don't need a new bill to do that. If it crosses the line, then the tools already exist. And what I would advocate for is better on-the-ground management of situations like that rather than creating new crimes. Because really what new crimes do, it may make you feel good for a little bit that this crime exists, but it doesn't actually address the underlying issues. We also need to have a much broader dialogue about what led to those protests and that intimidation in the first place.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think Eli's made his position about this clear, but we need to move on to Stephanie. So let's give a big round of applause for Eli. Thank you. So you only have to stop clapping for a second because Stephanie Ruske is coming up to ask for your support as well.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm Stephanie Ruske. I am also running for Assembly for the 69th District. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and how I operate, because I think the best way to know what someone's going to do in the future is to know what they've done in the past. So I'm a rabbi. I work at the Jewish Theological Seminary. We train rabbis. So I'm the Associate Dean there in the Rabbinical School, and I run our Center for Ethics and Justice. I am a parent. I have two 15-year-old boys. They are in public school. One is at the High School for Math, Science, and Engineering, and the other is at Essex Street Academy. I will tell you that one reason I'm qualified to do this job is because I just found two different high schools for two different kids at the same time in New York City. It also means that I saw lots and lots of schools because I don't do anything half-heartedly. And I saw many amazing schools. I also know that you can get a not as good education, and that if your parents don't have as much time and flexibility, then you're sort of left to your own devices. So, and one thing I want to tell you that I have learned, is, which may surprise you, is that in New York City, 25% of kids live below the poverty line. In public school, it's 75%. That's a big deal. If we are siphoning off kids and segregating kids by class, we got a big problem, and it doesn't bode well for the future. So I have firsthand experience sort of being inside and navigating my own kid's education, and I would treat everybody's kid the same way I treat my own. I want to tell you a little bit about, a few things to know about me. One reason I'm doing this now is that I can't bear to live in a country where masked agents of the government kidnap people and put them away and not do more. That wasn't the education and training I got as a kid. And I can't tell my children that I just went to work every day and I didn't do more than I do now. I've gone to do accompaniment at Federal Plaza. I've gone to Delaney Hall, where you sit among people who are hoping to visit their families. It's terrible. And the people who you always wind up advocating to in this particular moment, it's not the federal government, because that is a mess and causing the problem. It's our state elected officials. So I would like to be one of them, because I feel like they are the people with the best chance to make a difference now. I'm also running because of housing. So we live on 103rd and Riverside. We moved into this apartment when I was pregnant. I've lived on the West Side my whole adult life. I also was born on 97th Street between Columbus and Central Park West in a Mitchell-Lama building. I am a person who loves this neighborhood. I have a bad sense of direction, which might be why I love living here so much, because I totally know how to go everywhere. But you also can't afford to move anywhere. First of all, there's a 1.2% vacancy rate. So basically, we're all stuck exactly where we are. And if your rent goes up, you can move. You can find a much higher paying job, or I don't know what else. Or you could run for office. That was what I decided. I decided that you can't outsource your problems. So you have to bring your creativity to the room. Our whole lives are being voted on in Albany. So I would like to be there. some of the work I do now is multi-faith work. I work with clergy in Morningside Heights in particular, with Riverside Church, Union Theological Seminary, the Interfaith Center of New York, and the Presbyterian, the Episcopal Diocese, which is an amazing place. And we do lots of things together. And we do them because we know that we share many principles about justice, and none of us can do it on our own. So we've gone to Rikers together last Passover, and we did a foot wash. The Presbyterians did a foot washing, and I did blessings for Passover. We do Multi-Faith Mondays. Every Monday we're down at Columbus Circle together, all of those different faith groups. It's a vigil for democracy. We started doing it almost a year ago as a response to Donald Trump and as a response to feeling like democracy was really on the line. And it's really scary to be in your house by yourself thinking maybe there's not going to be democracy again. But if you go outside, whether it's hot or cold out, and you join with other faith leaders in their communities, you don't feel so lonely. We sing, people preach. We always have a call to action. You do something, and then you come back next week and you bring more people. This is the way I sort of operate in the world. I don't do things myself. I always think it's better to do them with other people. I'm right. One of the things that made me think that this would be a perfect next thing for me is that I had breakfast with Linda Rosenthal, and we went for bagels. Someone came and sat down with her, a constituent, and said, well, she said, I would like to vote for you for the mayor, but I can't. And then she pulled up a chair and sat with us and told us about her life. And she told us about her son, who she worried would lose his Medicaid. And the government was closed at that point. And Linda said, well, do you want to call us at the office tomorrow? Maybe we can help. And I thought, oh, I understand this job. This is constituent services. That's what we do. We have students who come in who say, I have a problem. You try to help them solve their problem, and then you think, who else is having that problem? What kind of policy could I make to address that problem? So the way I would do the job really is constituent services matters enormously. I love to be in it with people and find out what's keeping them up at night, who else is having that problem, and what could we do together. And that's how I would approach this job also.
Okay, so I'm not allowed to run over time again, so I would like to, I don't know, Louisa, did you have a question before and I missed you? No, okay. Sir in the blue hood. Oh, and you know what? It would be really great if you were a member and you raised your hand to ask questions, because what you're doing is going to help us vote next week. So that would be wonderful.
Okay, I'm up. Good evening, Rabbi. Thank you. Really nice to hear you.
Say your name, too.
My name's Josh. I live in the neighborhood, obviously, so very curious about this race. For me, it's important to support those and understand who they support and make sure that I align in those issues. So I'm curious, who did you vote for? What was your rank in the Democratic primary, and who did you vote for in the general election for mayor?
My grandmother always used to say that it's a private opportunity to vote. I would be very happy to talk to you separately. I'd rather not sort of answer that, but I appreciate the question.
Good answer. Al Placeres.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear me?
No.
No? Hello? Now? Okay, I just want to go back to that issue of the empty storefronts.
Yeah.
Because I was very involved with that. Yeah. The first bill with the city council was Ruth Messenger when she was a councilwoman and Gail Brewer was working for her. They came up with that bill, and since then several city council members have come up with bills, and it's been a merry-go-round. They come up with the bill, it goes into committee, all these legislators take photos, because I was president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
A question, please,
No, the question is, going back to that same thing of having a bill, but it never comes out of committee, never comes up for a vote, but everybody says they support it. So I'm just saying, if we're going to go down that same road, that's not going to be the solution. I don't know if you have some
So
of the
do you want to
solution.
know about storefronts, or you want to know about?
I'm just saying,
what do you do?
if we try that, it's been tried, and
Yeah.
it goes nowhere.
We really need to keep our questions to a question, please. I can't fit enough of them in.
Well, can I say one thing in response, which is somebody told me that doing this job, that if you're in the assembly a little bit, it's like being in a maze with flypaper on the bottom, and things get stuck everywhere. And that the secret to doing the job well is being relentless and calling and calling and calling. You never just send something and say, oh, I guess they'll get back to me. I am very relentless. My current colleagues will tell you. So I think you have to just keep checking. You don't just assume you press send, it's over.
Member. Deborah Thomas, right there.
Thank you. Thank you. I would just like to ask you, our current assembly person, one of his very strong points is he has a lot of experience writing policy in the state with the governor, besides his other, that he stands up to the president and so on. But what is your experience with writing policy, or what do you feel would be your assets that would help you to do that?
Yeah. Thank you. So first of all, Micah was our kids' Little League coach. That was how I got the idea that this would be a good thing to do with the next chapter of my life. Like, I was moved and impressed, and we supported him and got involved. And then I thought, wow, we keep asking him to do things. Like, that's who does things right now. So I am inspired by the way that he leads, and I would like to follow in his footsteps. And you can't possibly pass all the things he's already put forward. So I would be a person who wanted to sort of keep them going. What I say to my students, always training rabbis, is like, nobody's born knowing how to be a rabbi. You study, and then you practice, practice, practice. No one's born knowing how to be an assembly person. You bring all the assets and gifts that you have, you do it your way, and then you ask everybody you know for advice. And it's how I've done every job, and it's what I would do here too.
A gentleman in the plaid shirt in front of Adafe.
Hi, Eitan, thank you so much. You said you had a lot of local ties to the community and you've been living here for a while. Can you speak to some of your endorsers?
Yes, well, thank you. Ruth Messenger was my real mentor, my first boss. I worked for her for 5 years. And while I never planned then to run for assembly, I think she trained me. Sean Abreu, who is our council member. Neely Rosick, Scott Stringer, Bob Abrams, and Deborah Glick. These are all people who actually know what this job is and have cheered me on and are training me.
Adafe.
Thank you, Stephanie. This job involves like two chambers, the State Assembly and the State Congress, and state senators. Are there folks in the Assembly that have endorsed your campaign? What relationship do you have with Albany? Because you said yourself that you don't have a sense of direction. So,
I know how to take the train great.
how would you come back from Albany? So what's your relationship with Albany in terms of like being someone who wants to represent us there?
Thank you for asking. I have not been to Albany a lot. I don't think it will take me a lot of time to figure out. Like, on day one, I'll find out where's the bathroom, and then I'll know. Like, I don't feel scared about a thing I didn't do yet. I think, like, you find out, and then you know. That's everything we do in life. So, can I say one last thing, because I think you're going to cut us off?
I am.
I felt it.
You could see Lorraine's signs. One more minute.
I could, yes. I want to just say, when I was a kid, my father used to say to us, what did you do today to make the world safe for democracy? Which is a very big question to ask little kids. I think it was an advertisement. He liked how it sounded. It became sort of the motto in our house. At that time, it seemed like democracy was fine and on the ascent. It does not feel like that now. And I feel like this is an opportunity to help make New York a bright spot of democracy, because the way that you save a country is one little state at a time. And I want to be our assembly person in order to help do that here.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so Dan Cohen is going to go around and grab people to count ballots and take them somewhere to count them. But we also are very fortunate to have with us tonight someone who's going to make brief remarks. Acting Supreme Court Justice Kate Waterman Marshall is going to talk about the need for more judges in New York County.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Judge Kathleen Waterman Marshall. I've been one of your judges for 8 years, one of your Supreme Court judges for 5. Some of you may remember me in 2017 when I ran for civil court for all of 2 weeks, and my colleague and friend Leslie Stroh won that year. I won the next year. That's how it is. Anyway, I just want to commend you all for coming out on a really cold night. I want to thank the leadership of the club, the state committee people, the district leaders, the judicial delegates, all of the club members. You guys are the lifeblood of our democracy. The work that you do is critical, and you do it for free. And sometimes it can be thankless when you're petitioning. So I just want to thank you, because I'm one of your elected officials, and I appreciate the work that you put in to educate yourselves and to educate community on not only our elected officials, but what's happening inside of our government. So I'm here, hopefully something that I say here today in the next 2 minutes will help you understand a little bit more of what the process is, what's happening inside of our state Supreme Court. I was in Brooklyn Family Court for 3 years, but I'm not going to talk about Brooklyn Family. I'm going to talk about New York State Supreme Court in the downstate area. So I guess really you know, I was introduced by suggesting that I have some information of the need for a lot of, we need more judges. Let me just, look. I have an inventory of 1,100 cases. My colleagues have inventories of similar amounts. What that means is justice delayed is justice denied. I could work, being a judge is evenings and weekends. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It doesn't matter. I love it. I would do it all day long for the rest of my life. It gives me so much joy. But we're always fighting to keep up. We're always fighting to keep up. This year, we lost to retirement or elevation to the appellate division 11 Supreme Court judges, right downtown New York County Supreme Court. In exchange, my administrative judge got 7. So what happened with those 4,000 other cases? Well, they get dispersed amongst me and my colleagues. Now, we do the job, and we do it lovingly and with passion, and we love to help people, or at least I can speak for myself, and I know that's true. But we do need more judges. Now, I say this, I cannot comment on present legislation except to enlighten you that, and many of you probably know, that there have been some legislation passed to open the cap, because there's a cap, a constitutional cap on the amount of Supreme Court judges that we can have. And apparently it's gone through a process once, and it may go through a process again. So that may be something in your general discourse that you'll investigate and you'll come to know. But there is a need for more of us on the bench. It's just going to enhance efficiencies and trust in our judiciary. If you have to wait a year to get a simple motion decided, you're not going to have a lot of trust in what we're doing. And so that's one of the issues to take a look at. I'm going to suggest another issue. The federal courts have a self-represented office that is staffed by attorneys that help people, self-represented people that can't afford attorneys, help them process their claims and guide them through the system. We don't have a similar thing in New York County Supreme Court, but I think it would be really helpful, not only to the people that have a claim but can't afford an attorney and need a little guidance, and it would also help us judges and the court staff, because when you have a self-represented person who doesn't know the law, I have to spend an extra amount of time parsing through the papers to figure out what's going on before I can actually make a determination. So, suffice to say, you probably already knew that we are a little bit overburdened in our Supreme Court, New York County. We could use some help from the citizens about possible ways of making that different, getting us more judges on the bench. And that's really all I wanted to come and tell you. I thought it's really a good time because I understand you're voting tonight for your judicial delegates. So, and that might be an important piece of information to know if you're running for a judicial delegate. And also I wanted to encourage people to come down and see what we do. I sit in 60 Center Street, room 335, open courtrooms. I am thrilled every time I see public members in the back of sitting in the gallery. It's an amazing thing. I suggest it for you. I suggest that you suggest it to the community members so that you can understand more fully what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I appreciate your time. I know you're getting to the busy work and the important work of endorsing the various candidates. And again, I think the clubs and the members and the club leadership is the backbone, is the lifeblood of our democracy, and I commend you and thank you. Thanks.
Well, nice to meet you guys. My name is Jacob Kimbaro. I'm running for state committee. Before I start, I made this joke when I went over to West Side Democrats, but it's true here as well. Whenever I'm walking down the street in the Upper West Side, whenever I see someone I recognize, I have to figure out whether or not I know them from, local Democratic clubs or if we go to the same temple. And I'd say like 9 times out of 10, it's both. So there's a handful of you. I will see you at Shabbat on Friday. But as Danielle was saying, I'm running for state committee. What that is essentially is that I will be our voice, our representative in the New York State Democratic Party. So I'll be going up either to Albany or just as we had last week in Syracuse, being our progressive voice up there and helping out or putting up fights where we feel is necessary. A little bit about myself. I'm actually a United States Air Force veteran. I enlisted when I was 18 years old, just like my brothers and my grandparents before me. When I left active duty and switched over to the reserves, I didn't know what I wanted to do next, so I did what all young men did, and I came to New York City, and then I kind of fell in and got involved in local politics, and as a result, I applied to Columbia University and got accepted to study political science. I'm in my final semester there right now. While going to school, I got involved with the Columbia Democrats. I also got involved with the Manhattan Young Democrats, which we have a couple members here right now. Last year, I was their events director. This year, I'm their external affairs director. And when I was in that position, we actually saw a double in 2 important numbers. We saw a double in our membership. Right now, I think we're between 300 and 350 members, if I'm thinking off the top of my head. We doubled the amount of money that we had in the bank. And so that's kind of some of the stuff that I want to bring over and run and do as a state committeeman. Really focus on getting more members to join our clubs and figuring out more ways to fundraise and bring more money so that we can focus on the things that we care about, Listen, this is the West Side. We're going to argue on a lot of things. We're going to disagree on a lot of things, such as our style. But ultimately, we're all in this room because we're Democrats, and we want to support Democrats and progressive values. So our focus, or at least my focus, is going to try and get those people in, get that money in, so we can knock on those doors, so we can get those petitions signed, so we can, get our candidates elected to public office. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time, but if you guys have any questions for me and want to talk to me afterwards, please let me know. And again, if you want to remember my name, she got it correct this time. Last time I went up, they mispronounced it. The way to remember it is, for a brighter tomorrow, vote for Kimbaro. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, like what does state committee do, for example? Yes, ma'am.
Not that exact question, but what's your stance on the buffer zone in front of religious institutions?
I'll kind of give a long-winded answer, I guess, in that. So the neighborhood where I grew up in Southern California. I was one of the only Jewish kids in my neighborhood. So, the idea of anti-Semitism, it's not this abstract thing, it's this very real thing, So that kind of feeling of fear when you're going to a place of worship, because I think there's kind of a distinction between the building and the people that are actually inside of it. So that fear is a thing that I understand. I think that's, that's a fear that unify a lot of people in this room. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't, understand the full consequences of it. I'm not a lawyer. But certainly any effort to make people feel safer, not just in synagogues, but in mosques or in churches, is something that I'm going to support. So any reason to oppose it would, I'd want to look at what the alternative is before I made that decision. Just the same, I'd want to look at, what the, severe negative effects would be if I didn't. So.
Okay, any other questions for Jacob, our pinch hitter speaker, while the ballots are being counted? Tony, wait for a mic or Steve will yell at you. Can you bring, thank you.
What was your MOS in the Air Force, and does it have any relevance to what you want to do in public life?
So what's interesting, in the Air Force, we don't use the phrase MOS. We use the phrase AFSC, which is Air Force Specialty Code. And my job was as a 2T2, an aerial porter, a 2T2, which basically meant that we were on the flight line, we were doing uploads, downloads for any number of equipment, whether it was missiles, tanks, people, X, Y, and Z. And my job in the Air Force, that's less what kind of drove me to get involved in public life, or, to get involved in politics, progressive politics. But it was actually the men and women that I served with. It was a very diverse crowd. It was Jewish kids like me, or it was Latino kids, or Asian kids, black kids. The joke I always make is the one thing we all had in common is that we were all poor, But what you really understand when you're in the service is this idea of we're kind of all in this together, And I also think, and this is something that I don't get to talk about very much, but you also get to see the failure of some policy. I see war as a kind of last resort. I think if you've served in the military, if you've deployed, and you come back being pro-war, you've kind of missed the point. So would my job, has it had any impact on my public, my desire to get involved in politics? No, but everything else has in my military career.
Okay, last question for Jacob, and then we have some results to announce.
I feel really good asking this, but what exactly does the state committee do?
Sure. So as I was saying before, state committee, so for every state assembly district that there is in the state, there are 2 state committee people. There's a male and a female, though I think there's now some policy changes to reflect non-binary folks in that as well. I think the same is for district leaders. But as I was saying before, we're that counterpart in the state party. We vote on resolutions, we put forward resolutions, hypothetically, we vote for the chair, though in practice that is usually picked by if the governor is a Democrat, which I think if everybody in this room has their way is going to be the case for the next 100+ years. But it's kind of stuff like that. But a big thing about state committee, a lot like district leaders, is there's also a big factor of what you make it to be. So you can kind of use your position to put progressive, yes, thank you. Push progressive legislation, be more involved with the clubs, be a representative of the clubs when it comes to getting people to join, and also, picking fights that are important to the community, and trying to spearhead those.
All right, so give it up for Jacob, who pinch hit. So we are voting for Congress District 12, New York State Controller, State Senate in the 30th, State Senate in the 47th, and we have the judicial delegates. We have one result now. Michael Lasher wins overwhelmingly our endorsement for Congress. Let me say that again, overwhelmingly. He had 56 votes. The highest vote count anybody else got was 7. So that's that, but let's give it up for our vote counters, why don't we? Because they're back there tabulating. And they're going to tell us the results as they come in.